You guys, Goblin Kings here with another deck tech. This one I am proud of. You won't make a lot of friends with it, but it is a fun deck to play nonetheless. It's a tribal elf deck, if you can't tell by the title. So it's a 60 card deck, mono green. Um, the whole point is to just pump up your elves and trample over them for the finisher with Azuri, and it's a budgeted version. There's still, I think there's a few $10 cards, $5, $6 cards, but that's because elves are so heavily played in modern. They're a fun thing to play, let me tell you. Turn one, you got hopefully a forest and something to tap for mana. There you go. Two really cheap cards. That could potentially be your turn two, the same exact thing. You got 4 mana on your turn two or 2 mana on your turn one, and they're only at 1, 2 mana. You already doubled their mana. There you go. It's an advantage right there. Turn two, like I said, you could have 2 of these, or obviously if not the Mystic, this guy right here. Could never really say his name. I don't know. It's 2 L's, so it's weird. But the Sylvan Ranger, if you don't have that second mana in your hand, but you kept the hand for some reason, that'll get you that mana on the battlefield. And now you have 3 mana on turn 2. And instead, if you have all the mana you want, you could go ahead and draw a card with Elvish Visionary. That's a nice card to have really any time of the game, especially since eventually you'll be running out of elves to play, and because you're going to have so much mana from the Archdroid right here. These are all the elves that are going to pump your guys up, give them trample. Azuri, he's a legendary creature. That's why it kind of sucks to run a playset of him. But he's just a very good card. Sometimes, it can be kind of frustrating if you draw more than one of them at the same time. But we still got 3. He's a pretty good staple in this deck. His ability gives him +3/+3 in trample. That's the finisher right there. Elvish Champion is one of the more expensive elves. It could be sideboarded, 2 of them, if you wanted to, for something else. Not only does she pump up your elves, she gives them forest walk, so I mean, really the trample won't even matter at that point. If they have forest, they can't block it anyways. So that's a really nice card to have when they have forests, but if not, they still pump up your elves, like I said. This guy right here, he is crazy good. One of my favorite cards. Not only does he pump up your elves, which is great, but you tap and he adds mana equal to the number of elves you control. So that's how you pump up all your elves, pump them out rather quickly. And if you want to ramp up to a really big creature, I initially thought about doing this. Stonehoof Chieftain, World Spine Worm, stuff like that, to just end the game with him and just keep pumping them out if you wanted to. I haven't tried that yet, but I'll let you know if I get my hands on stuff like that. Second, we have the Huntmaster. Forecast, I think 4 is as high as the mana cost goes in this deck. So all the elves are cheap. So whenever you play an elf spell, you put a 1/1 green elf into play. That elf gets all your pumps. That elf can get the trample from Azuri. So essentially, it's just 4 for a 3/3 and a 1/1, an extra blocker, if you will. Right here, the perfect elf. We got +1/+1. Again, that is great to have, and it taps to put another green elf warrior creature token into play. That one also gets all your +1/+1s. So if I were to take out Elvish Champion with the Forest Walk, if I knew they weren't running forests, then I would put in 2 of these guys right here because I don't know, it's just more efficient, I guess. This guy right here, the Warcaller, he is definitely my favorite card. So basically, he's 1 mana for a 1/1, but the multi-kicker is what gets people. Like you could have just like 2, 3 Elvish Mystics or whatever on the battlefield. And you play this guy with all this mana you have, and they become 3/3s, 4/4s, just like that. It is so quick. You pay 2 for every kicker, but it's a multi-kicker, so you can do it multiple times. So you got 6, 7 mana. You pay 1 to play him. The rest of your 6 mana goes to his kicker. He gets 3 counters, because 6 divided by 2 is 3. Crazy, I know. And all your elves get +2 or +1/+1 for every counter, so they all get +3/+3. and he keeps the counters, which is even better. Now, second, I have one of the worst planeswalkers potentially in the game. I've seen on a lot of worst top 10 lists. Nissa Ravain, Nissa's Chosen. They go in hand to hand. Search your library for a card named Nissa's Chosen. Put it on the battlefield, shuffle your library. But the best thing about this right here is Nissa's Chosen, when it dies, goes back to your library. Unless it was exiled or something like that. So really just have a free elf you can play. It's a 2/3 for 2, which is also great. Nissa's other one is gain 2 life for each elf you control. That can get really crazy. I've gained 20, 30, I don't think I've hit 40 life at one turn yet, but usually the games don't last that long. Her ultimate is pretty good. Never gotten to do that either, but don't judge planeswalkers just by their ultimate usually. But if I would say yes, she is a little bit pricey. But if you were to substitute Nissa Ravain out for something else, then definitely don't leave the Chosen in here because they kind of work so well together. I mean, yes, it's 2 for a 2/3, but they don't really contribute anything to the deck like all the other elves do. Now, the only 2 spells we were playing in this deck is Green Sun Zenith. This spell does work. You search your library for a creature card, so basically you're just paying 1 extra mana plus the mana for the converted mana cost of the elf that you want, and you get to play it from your library, and then this card gets shuffled back into your library, which is insane. Basically 1 mana to tutor your elf back onto the battlefield and shuffle the card back in. That's a great card. That's why it's $5. It's such a solid card. And I just saw a reprint too, so I'm glad that probably would be a lot higher. Elvish Promenade. I'm pretty sure this, since it says dash elf, it is considered an elf spell. So the Huntmaster up here will definitely count for that. Get your 1/1. You put another 1/1 for each elf token you play. For each elf token you control, you basically get another 1/1 and destroy. Cheap card. Since there's a lot of elves that tap for mana and whatnot, and they're relatively cheap elves, you're only going to run 19 lands. That can go, 1 up, 1 down if you wanted to, but 19 was the most consistent for me. Some of the sideboard cards, Timberwatch Elf is very good, pumping 1 elf very high, giving it Trample with Azuri if you wanted to, or Forest Walk, and hopefully dealing massive damage. Wolf Skull Shaman, I ran that one for a while, and I took it out because I wasn't really sure about the 2/2 Wolf. It was basically just a blocker, nothing special. Copperhorn Scout, this card was really fun to play with if you got it out. Basically, you tap all your elves to attack, or tap all your elves to generate massive amounts of mana. And then whenever you attack with this guy, with your other elves, they all untap. You get all your tapped mana, all that stuff. So you can just tap them again for mana on your second main phase if you wished. Reclamation Sage, destroy target artifact or enchantment. I haven't really ran into any problems with enchantments or artifacts yet, but that's just a very popular, strong card nonetheless. These next 3 cards are, or I guess 2 of them are stables for tribal. Door of Destinies, that's pretty self-explanatory. Play an elf spell, or whatever creature you're playing. Play the spell, it gets a counter. All your creatures with the same creature type get plus whatever equal to the number of counters. Coat of Arms, this card just saw a reprint, you guys, in Mind versus Might. So I believe it's at $8 right now, so it should be going down, not too far. But each creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature on the battlefield that shares at least 1 creature type with it. So all your elves, you have 5 elves, they all get +5/+5. Arbor Elf could be substituted for Elvish Mystic, those kind of cards. I don't really know why this one's more popular. I couldn't find them anywhere convenient for me. It does the same thing. I guess it's just cool because it doesn't tap for green, it taps a forest, which can be used in different ways. These 2 cards right here are definitely not budgeted. Collected Company, okay, it's $10, but put out a few more elves for free for 4 mana, I guess, but 2 elves out. that can be good unless you're putting out 2 Elvish Mystics. In that case, it's not really worth it. Otherwise, you're just searching for 2 Elvish Mystics to tap for mana. Cavern of Souls, just saw a reprint, obviously, in Modern Masters 17. Hope you guys watched that. That was a really crazy box. Lots of fun. But obviously, your spells of the Elves can't be countered, and it taps for any mana. So if you wanted to play Shaman in the pack, which is black and green, then that can't be countered either, and that you don't really need the dual lands with that. But that is a very expensive card, but very good card. Right here, the Elite. I skipped the first part if you don't know because I can't really say the names sometimes. I don't want to sound like an idiot. When enters the battlefield, if you control another elf, put a 1/1 elf onto the battlefield. So basically 2 for a 2/2 and a 1/1. Both of them will be pumped up by your other elves. So that's not a bad deal, efficiently. Right here, the Planeswalker. She can put a 1/1 elf that taps for mana, more elves, and destroy some artifact removal. I mean, the ultimate, I mean, you know, card draw is nice when you're pumping up a lot of creatures, pumping out a lot of creatures. That's kind of nice. But I have not played this card in the Elves at all. But I just saw it and thought, hey, that might work. So that's possible if you have that. Drove of the Elves. I believe this card gets really big. I've played with it a few times. Now, green permanence. It gets its power and toughness is equal to your green permanence. So that gets really big. Your lands count as green permanents. Your elves, green permanents, not the tokens. I don't know if they count, actually. They might. I know they don't count as devotion, but I'll have to look at that. So this guy gets massive. You're supposed to trample over them with Azuri. He can be regenerated. I think there's a hexproof one. I don't know. Thornworld Archer has Reach, Death Touch, staple in our Death Touch deck, if you guys watch that one. 2/1 for 2. Flying is kind of a big hazard with this deck, fast flying. Got a guy in our group that plays dragons. He usually hits pretty hard, pretty quick. So that usually takes 10, I don't know, half your life down before you can retaliate on that. So the reach is nice. The Death Touch, that makes people not want to attack with their bigger creatures to you. That's about it there. And like I said earlier, Shaman of the pack, you play it, they lose a ton of life. You have a ton of tokens, you have a ton of elves, tapping for mana, all that. This can be a nice finisher if you're running Splashing Black with dual lands or Cavern of Souls, stuff like that. So yeah, that's really it, guys. This is a really fun deck to play. Like I said, you don't really make friends. You get targeted a lot. But if they miss out like 2 turns, if you play the War Caller or something like that, things get out of hand really quickly. So hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Put some stuff in the comments if you want to leave your opinion. And I will say we're getting really hyped up for Amonkhet. Hopefully going to have a box or 2 for that. So stay tuned for that.